Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the show. Today, as you probably saw from the title, we are addressing the elephant in the room when it comes to intuitive eating, which is the fear of weight gain, the fear of what it's going to do to our bodies, the fear of having to lose weight first before you can dive into intuitive eating. So if you are someone right now who has heard of the concept of intuitive eating, maybe you've been following me and listening to this podcast for a while now, and it really resonates with you. It makes so much sense. And after your past history of yo-yo dieting and struggles with food, then developing a completely new way of eating and of thinking about food, one that is rooted in listening to your body and honoring your hunger and fullness cues, one that is compassionate and balanced and consistent and sustainable that you would be able to maintain for the rest of your life instead of constantly jumping from one extreme of restriction and food rules to the other of overeating and binging. All of this is making so much sense to you, but there is still a little bit of hesitation, of resistance to this framework, which is, what is it going to do to my body? Because maybe right now you think that the only way that you are keeping your health or your eating or your weight in check is because of all of the rules and all of the control and all the restrictions. But I want you to ask yourself, has all of this control actually ever helped me feel more in control in the long run? So I'm going to talk about intuitive eating and how it can affect our weight. And we're going to look at long-term thinking when it comes to our health. And the reason why I thought it was very important to have this conversation today is because we just wrapped up the 7-day intuitive eating challenge. And I first have to say how amazing it was. I mean, for these 7 days, we had hundreds of women in there who were joining live, watching these trainings, coming into the Facebook group and sharing all of their incredible wins that they got in just 7 days. And it blew me away. It means the world to me. And I cannot express enough how much I appreciated this challenge, how much I'm excited to do it again. And so if you didn't get the chance to take part of it this time around, then I really hope that the next time I do launch it, you'll be able to take part in it. And lastly, before we start today's episode, I just want to remind you that the Food Freedom Academy, my signature group coaching program, 12 weeks working with me directly through live coaching, through lifetime access to an online course, through a community, through a Facebook group, it is now open for applications, and it is only open for another 2 days. We kick off on January 23rd. It is already mostly full, but we still have a couple of spots left. So if you want to apply, then you can head to sabrinamagna.com/academy, or you can also find that link in the show notes. As I said, only 2 more days with the applications open, and then we get started on the 23rd. So if you do want to apply, if you want to learn a little bit more about the program, if you want to talk to me directly, book a call with me, then you can go to that link, sabrinamagna.com/academy. If you're someone who is tired of yo-yo dieting and feeling obsessed with food, overeating, binging, emotional eating, and you want to learn how to heal your relationship with food, become an intuitive eater, and create a healthy life based off of healthy habits that are balanced and consistent and doesn't revolve around food and your body, then if you're even a little bit curious, I really recommend that you apply so we can chat and we can help you determine if this program is a right fit for you. All right, so let's get into today's episode, today's topic, which is this fear of what intuitive eating is going to do to our bodies, right? So right now you might be thinking, I'll dive into intuitive eating once I lose weight, right? Or that fear of what if I do intuitive eating and then I lose complete control and I gain all this weight. All right. And if you're terrified, if you're nervous, I just want you to know, first of all, that it's totally okay to feel this way. And it makes total sense. I used to be a dieter too, so I know how much diet culture ingrains these beliefs in us that bigger bodies are unhealthy bodies, that we're not lovable or worthy in a bigger body, and all of that other crap that they brainwash us with in an attempt to induce us into thinking that our bodies are wrong and that we need to do anything at all costs to change it, right? The diet industry, the weight loss industry, is an industry that thrives off of creating flaws in human beings so that we think that we need to fix it. And so if they can convince us that a bigger body means an unhealthy body, then we will invest in the Weight Watchers and the Noom and the shakes and the detoxes to make our bodies smaller, because we are so afraid of being unhealthy. We are so afraid of being ostracized. We're so afraid of being criticized in our society that we will literally sacrifice our emotional, mental, and physical well-being trying to shrink our bodies to fit in. And what's really important is that this notion that we need to diet, we need to restrict in order to be healthy and in order to be worthy, it doesn't take into account the reality, which is that diets don't work. We have cold, hard evidence showing that dieting leads to future weight gain. And it might provide us with that temporary relief, that instant gratification that we get when we start a new diet and we see the weight come off very quickly and we think we have that hope, that thrill of, oh my God, I have finally found the diet that's going to work for me. And so we cling on to those positive emotions that we feel at the beginning of a diet. But then once we eventually hit a plateau or we start gaining that weight back, we start blaming ourselves. We think that we did something wrong because the diet was working and then I fell off the wagon. And we don't take into account the fact that none of these diets were set up for long-term success. The reason being that any intentional weight loss is going to go hand in hand with having to micromanage our food in some way. It goes hand in hand with cutting back on something that we're doing because we believe that our bodies are bigger than they quote unquote should be, which means that we are likely eating too much or we're eating too much of the wrong things. And so we start restricting, we start depriving ourselves. And in and of itself, deprivation and restriction is going to lead to intense cravings. Number one, because we want what we can't have. And number two, because a lot of the times we end up underfeeding ourselves. We end up bypassing our body's internal cues and we find ourselves in states of extreme hunger. So whether you're underfeeding yourself or you are just depriving yourself so much that all you can think about is food, that is going to backfire and result in rebound hunger, in overeating, in binging, with the mindset of, okay, well, I've already done something that I shouldn't, so I'm just going to eat all the foods and start again tomorrow. And we know from the research that this isn't just theory. It's been shown time and time again. Up to 2/3 of dieters gain back more weight than they ever lose. 66% of dieters regain all of their lost weight within 1 year. 95% of dieters gain back their weight loss within 2 to 5 years. Chronic dieting is damaging to your mental and physical health, and it's going to lead to social isolation, right? We don't want to go out. We don't want to go to the restaurant. We don't want to be around people when we're afraid to be tempted by food, which leads to social isolation. It can lead to depression, anxiety, because we're constantly being bombarded with different rules about what you should or shouldn't eat, what you can or cannot eat. And so your eating experience cannot be this relaxed, peaceful experience that pays attention to what your body is telling you when your head is so loud with rules and guilt and shame. there's no way to really connect to our bodies and be an intuitive eater when we are so hyper-focused on changing the way that our bodies are. I've already done a full episode on how we get stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle, but the bottom line is that trying to force yourself into losing weight through dieting or restricting or quote unquote clean eating, which is the new term that the wellness culture has started embracing because people don't want to diet anymore. And so we think of clean eating, but all it does is create more fear around food, and it makes you feel like certain foods are junk or unnecessary, which is just not the case. One thing that I always describe to my clients is when we start labeling foods as good and bad, or as clean or dirty or junk or whatever it is, then we start seeing those foods as unnecessary. And when we are constantly not feeding our souls, because those foods have a purpose. The way that I always describe it is all foods have a purpose. A very nutritious, healthy, green-filled salad is going to have a very good purpose of nourishing your body. It's going to give you the nutrients that it needs. You might also love the taste of it. And then there's going to be some other foods that maybe won't be as nutrient dense, like a cookie or a cake, but they're just as meaningful. They're just as important, because the same way that you would not work 24/7 because you would burn out, right? You allow yourself to have rest on nights and weekends. That time is necessary. It's necessary for recharging. It's necessary for self-care. And having those foods that you love is necessary in your life as well. And without it, when we start with that intentional weight loss, it leads to restrictions, deprivations, which leads to cravings and extreme hunger, which leads to binging, which leads to more weight gain. And then that cycle restarts because we go back on this train of trying to go after intentional weight loss. And over time, your weight ends up creeping up and up and up. This isn't because of a fundamental flaw in you, in your discipline, in your willpower. It's that every intentional weight loss disconnects you more and more from your body. And so how are we ever supposed to eat sensibly? How are we ever supposed to pay attention to what our bodies are telling us and to stop when we're full, when we're so disconnected and we have become so deaf to our bodies because all of this noise around the rules of what you should or shouldn't be doing? On top of the research on how it affects our weight, we know that 35% of chronic dieters go on to develop an eating disorder. And the even more disturbing fact is the impact that all of this has on young girls. And so this is very important to me, because when I first started my business, a big reason that this was so important to me was, yes, of course, all of these women that have spent their entire lives dieting and missing out on truly living a full life because of it. And we also have to think about the impact that this has on young girls and on our next generation, because this is passed down. Our behaviors, our mindsets around food and our body is passed down from our mothers and their mothers. And the younger that we are, when we develop these core beliefs around the world, the harder it is to change, because it becomes hardwired in our brains. We don't know anything different. These young girls who grow up in an environment where we're constantly being told that our bodies are not good enough, that we need to manipulate it, that we need to manipulate the way that we eat in order to shrink our bodies. You might not be telling them directly as a mother or as a sister or whatever it is, but they pick up on those kind of behaviors. Dieters are 8 times as likely to suffer from an eating disorder by the age of 15 than non-dieters. And it's been shown that mothers have a high influence on their daughters' worldviews of their food and their bodies, whether they're talked about in the home or not. Because remember, kids learn from what they see, not what you you say. There has been a study that showed that 5-year-old girls' ideas about dieting are predicated by their mother's dieting. And in this study, they state, and I'm going to quote, compared to girls whose mothers did not diet, girls whose mothers reported current or recent dieting were more than twice as likely to have ideas about dieting, suggesting that mothers' dieting behaviors is a source of young girls' ideas, concepts, and beliefs about dieting. So with this in mind, we're not giving these girls even a fair chance to grow up with a healthy body, a healthy relationship with food, whether that is 120 pounds or 210 pounds. Our bodies all have a predetermined set point weight. This is called the set point weight theory, which we talk about in the academy. And it's not necessarily a weight more than it is a range. And so what we need to really understand is that this range is something that we have little control over. The same way that you have maybe a size 8 shoe, you would never try to shrink your shoe size to a size 5, a size 6. You know that it is not physically possible to manipulate your size in that way. But as human beings and as our bodies are, we've been conditioned by diet culture to believe that it is possible with enough will, with enough determination to get our bodies to look whatever we want it to look like. And that's simply just not the case. Another reason why dieting ends up backfiring and leading to long-term weight gain instead of weight loss is because we know that dieting increases your risk of binge eating. This is because of the effect on restriction that we've already talked about, which then increases your risk of developing excess weight and an eating disorder. Now, you might be thinking this very common question, which is, well, what about my health? There's another crucial piece of this that's important to understand and that diet culture would never, ever tell you, which is that your weight does not equal your health. I can't tell you anything about your health by looking at your weight. Despite what diet culture, society, and the BMI chart would have you believe, which BMI charts are something we could do a full other episode on, you actually can be healthy at any size. And when I was on my intuitive eating journey, learning this was a huge shock for me. Learning that you can be skinny and active and eat healthy. You can be skinny and inactive and eat poorly. You can be overweight and be active and eat healthy. You can be overweight and be active and eat poorly. What determines our health is not our weight. What determines our health is our behaviors. I want you to think about Serena Williams, one of the greatest female tennis players, athletes of all times, someone who anyone could argue is extremely healthy. I was doing some research on her. She eats vegan. She, of course, works out every single day. And she doesn't have the conventionally, quote unquote, fit, skinny bodies that you would see on Instagram. She doesn't have a, super thin 6-pack ab or thigh gaps. And I was doing some research on her for this podcast, and some of the headlines that I was reading that have been written about her, right here, it says fat, fat, fat. Immediately after her giant success, Serena Williams had to face glaring negativity from fans owing to her body in 2009. Another one said Serena Williams' weight gain, the tennis body's body transformation throughout the years. It is truly crazy to think of this prolific athletes, one of the greatest athletes in all times, being boiled down to the way that her body looks. And so again, this is just an example that you can be healthy and maybe not seem like the conventionally healthy girl. Or on the other side of the spectrum, I was looking at some pictures from me when I was at my smallest. I was well below my set point weight, meaning I was well below the weight that my body is supposed to land on. And I have happily found that weight now. And it is a weight that I know no matter how hard I try, the only way for me to get to the weight that I used to be when I had a thigh gap and my ribs were showing through my dresses was for me to starve myself like I was doing before, and to exercise 7 days a week, and to deprive myself and to not live a full life. And that person who had a thigh gap, who had six pack, who had her ribs showing through her clothes, she wasn't healthy. She had no energy. She had no drive. She was hungry all the time. She was depressed. Her hair was falling out. Her nails were brittle. She was binging all the time. There was nothing about this small body that was healthy. And so this is just to remind you that our health is not determined by what we look like or by our weight. It is determined by our behaviors. And that's what we really focus on in the academy, is focusing on health promoting behaviors. And this could be things like mindful eating, joyful movement, enjoying your food, self-efficacy, which means the belief in yourself that you can accomplish your goals, your dreams, positive relationships. Your relationships have such a big impact on your mental health and on the way that you behave every single day. Food variety, allowing yourself food flexibility, stress reduction, all of these coping mechanisms, adequate sleep, improved self-care. These are all health promoting behaviors. And if you look at all of those and you tell yourself that if you were to implement all of these behaviors and yet your weight didn't change, you would still be an unhealthy person. That's just not the case. No matter what your fat phobic doctor might say, your family members, your health is determined by your behaviors, not the number on the scale. Studies show that these healthy habits have been associated with a significant decrease in mortality, regardless of your weight. And intuitive eaters have been shown to have healthier diets, improved cardiovascular health, weight stability, more daily fruit and vegetable consumptions, and better psychological health. And while weight loss can be a result of those behaviors, it's not what improves your health. All of those behaviors do. So when you embark on your intuitive eating journey, there's a couple of things that could happen to your weight. Number one, you might lose weight. If you are someone right now who is consistently overeating, turning to food for emotional reasons, disconnecting from your body, eating past fullness, not particularly wanting to move your body because you've been so scarred by your past with dieting. I have had so many clients who had a unhealthy mindset around exercise because they had a very all or nothing mindset. They thought that they had to do something that they hated. They have been forced through so many exercise routines that they despise, that they have almost like a PTSD in relation to getting their bodies moving. So if you're someone who is consistently ignoring your body and not moving your body and not even wanting to eat nourishing foods as a result of yo-yo dieting, there is a chance that your body settles at a lower weight if you are currently above your set point weight. If you are chronically restricting, over-exercising, you are not eating enough, you are living in extreme hunger all the time, there's a good chance that your body may need to gain weight. It may need to hit your set point weight. And that's where I was too. I've been at both sides. I've been over my set point weight when I was constantly binging, and I've been under my set point weight when I was struggling with orthorexia. But the point of intuitive eating is not to hyper focus on hitting your set point weight, because then it can once again turn into a weight focused approach. What we want to do is we want to help you put weight loss on the back burner. it doesn't mean that you need to let go of your desire to lose weight, because that's unrealistic, especially if you've lived your entire life hating your body and being told that there's something wrong with it. However, what we know from the research is that when weight loss is at the front and center, when everything that you do is to lose weight, it will backfire and may result in short-term weight loss, but it will result in long-term rebound weight gain and your set point weight increasing over time. Because one thing that we know about our set point weights is that although we have very little control over it, there's a few things that come into play. One of them being yo-yo dieting. Yo-yo dieting has been shown to increase your set point weight over time, because with every new diet attempt, your body learns to hold on to more fat because it doesn't know when's the next time that food is going to be available, that enough consistent food is going to be available, that it wants to help you survive. And so it learns to slow your metabolism down, to use less energy in order to function. So I talk to so many women who after diets feel like they have to eat less and less in order to maintain their weight. And that's not because there's something wrong with you. It's just because your body has gone really good and has adapted to all of the stress and the trauma that it's been through different diets, that your body learns to hold on to more fat, more energy, which means that our set point weights actually get higher and higher over time, the more that we diet, making it harder to lose weight in the long run. And so again, we might get that instant gratification, but we set ourselves up for more struggles in the future. When we think about the cost of dieting, of course, there's the enormous cost on our health, both our physical and mental health. But I want you to think of how many things you've already missed out on because of the constant pursuit of dieting. There's also the monetary price that comes along with dieting, with Weight Watchers subscriptions and meal plans and unnecessary diet foods. I've worked with clients who had spent over $10,000 on different weight loss attempts. And they've all said the same thing, which is, I wish that I had found intuitive eating sooner. Not because it is a weight loss focused approach, but because it would have saved them the years and years of trying and failing and feeling like a failure and putting all of this effort into this end goal, which was ultimately unreachable. And we also know that Americans spend millions of dollars a year on diets and dieting plans. Just Weight Watchers and Nutrisystem alone made billions of dollars last year. But it goes beyond that. I remember hitting my diet rock bottom. I was tired of always planning out what my next diet was going to be, of over-exercising to burn off what I ate the night before, of counting calories, of constantly thinking about food. I missed out on so many precious moments in my life. And before you go and decide to try that one more diet, I'm going to lose weight and then I'll go into intuitive eating, or before you let that fear of what it may do to your weight, I want you to really sit down with this and think of how much dieting has already cost you. How much time you've already let slip by. Time searching online for weight loss hacks, thinking about what to eat, what not to eat, how many points or calories that are left for the day, how much time you've spent in Facebook groups and reading books, all in the hopes that it will make you feel happier or more confident or shrink your body in a way. Think of how much time you've spent beating yourself up for the way that you look, for the number on the scale, for not having enough willpower, the years of weight loss plans and packaged foods and books and magazines that have gone you nowhere except for maybe even more weight gain over time and more obsession with food. Think of how much your self-esteem, energy, focus, your mood has suffered. the spontaneous dinner dates that you missed out on because you were too afraid of your plans being changed or not having included that into your plans of how many calories you were allowed to eat that day, the pictures you didn't take because you didn't think your body was good enough, the people you didn't meet because you didn't want to put yourself out there, because you didn't have the confidence, because you let your fear of what people are going to say about you stop you from really putting yourself out there, your relationships that have suffered. I have so many clients who decided to enroll in the academy. One of the big reasons being that their relationships with their husbands have suffered. It is so hard to have a good, healthy, positive relationship with someone when either, number one, you're holding back and hiding such a big piece of yourself, a big piece of suffering that you don't feel like you can talk about, or if you're with that person, but in your head, you are calculating what you've eaten or how it's going to affect you tomorrow, and you're not actually able to be present with that person. That doesn't go away with more dieting. If anything, it gets worse. Think of the vacations that you didn't take because you thought you needed to lose weight first. We don't get that time back. The real cost of dieting and of diet culture is more than just money. It's the experiences, the memories, the health, the things that we miss out on. Your life purpose. You were not put on this earth to spend 99% of it trying to shrink yourself. You have the possibility, you have the ability to expand the world around you, to make a difference for people in your life, but you cannot do that when you don't have enough mental space to think about what you really want to accomplish in life. Your joy, your purpose gets robbed when your sole goal is to change the way you look instead of changing the world. And in the same vein, the benefits of not dieting, the benefits of pursuing intuitive eating are hard to express in just one podcast, but I will try my best. Self-acceptance, self-worth, confidence, happiness. You get in a better mood because you can actually think and be present for other things. You have more energy because you're fueling your body in the right way. Because that's one thing we know about intuitive eating is that it actually allows you to have more variety, to have better eating habits, because now you're making your decisions from an independent and autonomous point. You're not eating your salad or your vegetables because the plan told you to or someone else told you to and it feels forced, because that usually just ends up with rebellion and with resistance. But when your choices are coming from you and you know that no one is telling you what you should or shouldn't be eating, and you get to decide, do I want to be eating this? Does this feel good, right? Do I want to feel this way for the rest of the day? And sometimes the answer might be yes, sometimes the answer might be no. And it is hard to do that step if you don't learn to reconnect to your body, which is a huge component of the academy. But we have more energy. We are less likely to binge and emotionally eat because intuitive eating teaches you how to cope with your emotions in a more healthy and productive way than turning to food every single time. Decreased binges because when we take away the restrictions, the binging goes away with it. Decreased cravings, again, because we want what we can't have when we know that we can have it whenever we want. The cravings decrease significantly. Intuitive eaters have improved cholesterol levels, improved body image, improved metabolism. Metabolism is a huge one. I actually had one of my challenge participants ask me questions about our metabolism and how our hunger cues work and if we can trust them. And what I explained to her was, your metabolism is like a fire. And what's the best way to put out a fire? It's to stop giving it the fuel that it needs, to stop giving it the wood and the logs that it needs. And so when you are consistently under fueling your fire, then of course your metabolism is going to slow down and eventually feel wrecked. And so when you become an intuitive eater and you learn to fuel yourself enough consistently, your metabolism is going to thrive. Intuitive eaters are also proven to have better weight maintenance, meaning no more of the gaining and losing the same 20 to 30 pounds over and over again, which has actually been found to be very detrimental for our health, even more detrimental to consistently holding a higher weight. Intuitive eaters have decreased depression and anxiety, lower risk of disordered and emotional eating, decreased stress levels, and overall increased well-being and quality of life. And as someone who's been on both sides, I can absolutely attest to that. It is, yes, of course, learning how to heal from diet culture, how to heal your relationship with food in your body. At first, it's not easy work. And that's why I always recommend that you have support, that you have guidance, that you have some kind of roadmap, because you're diving deep. You are uncovering these issues that maybe you didn't even know that you had. But once you've done the work, once you've pushed through the discomfort of going against the cultural norms of starving ourselves and depriving ourselves of the joy of eating, and once you've come up on the other side, it really is life-changing. Healing your relationship with food is not just about food. When you become an intuitive eater, you don't just stop dieting, you get your life back. And so I hope that by now you realize that intuitive eating isn't just another shiny object. It allows you to get your health back, to feel in control of your behaviors instead of constantly chasing weight loss, which is largely out of our control. We can't wake up and one day decide that I'm going to be 130 pounds today, but we can decide that I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go for a 5-minute walk. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to take 20 minutes of yoga or meditating or having a good, nourishing breakfast. We can control our behaviors. And when you focus on the things that you can control, which is such an important piece of the program in the academy, is putting you back in control of your life, then it is so much easier to accomplish and feel good about the goals you're going after. So if there is that part of you that is so ready to put a stop to the food obsession and the constant anxiety around food and your body, but there is that fear of what it's going to do to your weight, to your health, I hope that this episode is really valuable for you. And I also encourage you to just sit down and do a quick inventory of your dieting history, right? Ask yourself what age this all started for you, all the different diets that you've gone on, write them down, the reasons why you started this diet, the types of diets you've done. This might take 5 minutes, like it might take an hour, but this is an exercise that I really encourage that you do. Ask yourself how long you were able to stay on each diet. Did you lose weight? And if you lost weight, how long were you able to keep that weight off? And did you regain that weight? Did you regain more weight than you lost originally? These are all really important questions to ask yourself, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in the false promises and the before and after pictures and the very smart marketing from diet culture, but it doesn't take into the facts, the data, and also your personal experience with dieting. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you. And if you are ready to push past those fears, that resistance that might be coming up for you, and you want to learn how to be an intuitive eater, you want to trust yourself around food again, you want to try an approach that is rooted in self-care, in nourishment, in the way that we were born to eat and designed to eat as human beings, and you want to gain back control of yourself and your life, then I would love for you to apply for Food Freedom Academy. As I said, the applications close in 2 days and we get started on January 23rd. If you're even just a little bit curious about if this program could help you and you want the support and the resources and the community to be successful and to not do the years and years of trial and error that I did and to have it condensed into 12 weeks, then I invite you to apply. Or you can also reach out to me on Instagram and ask me any questions there. I will personally respond to you as I answer all of my messages personally. So thank you so much for listening today. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.